5.5, to be exact. 5,500 for a decent place to live. For a student of yesterday, it was a great fortune. An unpretentious landlady, all the amenities without running faucets and clogged pipes. The necessary minimum of furniture, and even a working record TV, without realtors, double fees, and other financial inconveniences within an hour and a half. Sergei became a full-fledged tenant of the 2-square-size apartment. To be honest, he had only one room at his disposal. The second, according to the landlady, served as a warehouse for her various junk from the series of "in case it comes in handy." In fact, the only condition was not to touch the big barn lock on the door under any circumstances, and not to even think about penetrating into this dusty realm of forgotten junk. Joyfully assuring the landlady of his complete disinterest in the additional room, Sergei barely waited for the departure of his benefactress and grabbed an old cell phone. Leka, it's me, Lushkin. I got it. You fool. I got the house. Everything's in a Christmas tree. Take the boys, and we'll have a housewarming party. Having dictated the address, the new owner jumped on the old sofa, like a little kid, and jumped on the bed, groaning with springs. The old man can take a lot more. The jumper hummed contentedly and leisurely went to inspect the kitchen. By evening, it was crowded. The company settled down in the kitchen and continuously smoked cheap cigarettes, interrupted by a sip of beer or another student's tale. When his tipsy friends left, the hospitable host almost did not remember. Loschan realized that the housewarming party had been a success by the terrible dryness in his mouth, complete with a wild headache. Staggering, he found a water faucet in the darkness and greedily sucked on the source of life, saving chlorinated moisture. Along with the rumbling of the old pipes, he heard a strange, barely perceptible singing voice. 2 out, 1 to go. 2 will go out, there will be 1. 2 out, 1 to go. Screwing the faucet with force, and without changing his posture, Sergei listened intensely into the darkness. The voice was gone. Nervously fumbling with his hand on the wall, the tenant flicked the switch and frantically rapped his head, trying to find the presence of someone else. But there was nothing new in the kitchen except empty bottles and a mountain of cigarette butts. The clock read 4:30 in the morning. His head still ached, and the mysterious voice never appeared again. Having smoked 2 cigarettes in a row, the guy reasoned that the hangover and sleep consciousness could play more than a joke, and with a calm soul went to bed. The working week passed without any special incidents, and the long-awaited weekend came. No, this time, an alcohol marathon was not part of Sergei's plans. Nastya was coming to see him. For the 3rd month, the lovers had been chastely drinking tea at each other's houses, being shy in front of Nastya's parents, to whom they had to go as far as the neighboring town, and partying at random sleepovers, which were too few to satiate the need for joint privacy. But now it was going to be different. Finally, no one would be in the way, and the whole night would belong to them, alone. And it was perfect, intimate twilight. A bottle of wine and raging hormones did their job. The old sofa began to creak rhythmically as suddenly, clearly stamping each word somewhere under the ceiling, sounded an imperious voice. Must stay. Must stay. Must stay. The ceiling whitewash turned purple. A scarlet stain stretched to the corner, and thin streams of blood ran down the wall. With a deafening squeal, the girl rushed to the front door. tangling in the sheet. When the girl came out of her stupor, she was followed by her completely naked boyfriend. "Who's there?" An angry voice shouted through the door, which the frightened couple kept pounding on. "Neighbors!" From the 18th, yelled Sergei. "Open up, please. Help!" Nastya echoed him hysterically. The door swung open, and a huge Ambo with a ferocious expression stepped through the threshold. "What the fuck?" "Please help. I think someone's been killed." "Call the police. There's blood on the ceiling." The naked guys were shouting, frantically covering themselves with a sheet. The Ambo hummed and let the shivering couple into the apartment. In a few minutes, 2 squads of police were combing the attic above the 18th apartment. In the light, the stain turned out to be a badly rusted undercurrent, but the instructions called for detailed verification. As expected, there was no corpse, no blood, no other criminality in the attic, and therefore Sergei Ivanovich Loshchin was waiting for a hefty fine for a false call. Nastya left in a cab. The cops in their UAs. But Grisha, Ambal, was in no hurry to leave. Squeamishly pushing the ashtray away from him, he thoughtfully scraped the oilcloth with his fingernail. "How long have you lived here?" About 2 weeks. "How long you here for?" Hell knows. It's okay. Cheap." "It's not okay. Move out." "Why?" "Why? It's not healthy. Tenants are dying. I've seen 3. 1 drowned in the bathtub, 1 hanged himself, 1 well, it was a real junkie. No pity. And Vasil Stepanik from the 6th told a story that 12.5 people had gotten their flippers stuck here. He's an old stump. Remembers when a mother and daughter lived here during the Soviet era. That snot got knocked up. The mother noticed it when the girl's belly became normal. So she didn't want to embarrass herself. The party, all that. So she hired some beaten-up medical students to forcefully abort her at home. So something didn't work out with the slappers. The house was covered in blood. Unborn children in the basin, chopped to pieces, twins. The girl clenched her eyes, and her mother went crazy. They didn't tell us what happened next, but the apartment went bad. That's how it is, brother. Sergei swallowed nervously and sank heavily on the stool. Can I sleep over at your place? No problem, but you can't smoke at my place. Hollow's troubled sleep was interrupted by the ringing of an old Nokia. The display showed the subscriber mistress. Seryoshenko. What happened? The police called me. They say you called them at night. Antonina Pavlovna. What the hell is going on? And Sergei told the landlady all his nighttime worries. The receiver laughed a crackling old laugh. Seryoshenko. God be with you. In the pantry there is a box of my grandson's old toys, plush hares and talking bears. The batteries are dead, so they sometimes wheeze. I had a big scare myself once, so don't think too much. Well, and for the ceiling, do not worry, as the roof is repaired, so whitewash, new put on. What are you, really? Sergei felt how the color of shame floods his face and ears. Indeed, a fool is something. Toys scared, rust on the ceiling, moron. I almost moved out of such a good apartment, asshole. Embarrassed to say goodbye to Grigory, Sergei ran up the stairs, almost feeling the back of the neighbor's reproachful look. The first 2 nights, he had to sleep with the light on. The rusty stain on the ceiling was still a reminder of past experiences, But with time, the anxiety receded, and life went on again. And even Nastya, having given in to entreaties and excuses, was already agreed to come again to the bachelor's dwelling of Loshchin, but only if he himself would deign to come for her, having warned the landlady that he would have to go to a neighboring town for a few days, after which he would be sure to make the next payment. Sergei fell down with a cold at the last moment, postponing the trip until he recovered. But this night, the lodger didn't sleep for some reason. Slouching from corner to corner and smoking a pack and a half of Balkan Zvezda, Sergei looked out the window at the graying pre-dawn sky as a quiet voice sang an eerie song. First thing in the morning, you took me by force. The second morning, you befriended the grave. The third morning, I'll see not soon enough. The first one's gone, but I can't see the second. Sliding down the wall from horror, Sergei clearly understood that no toy hair in the world with a Chinese microchip in the plush belly cannot reproduce so terrifying timbre of the ominous voice. Morning 4, meet the dead. On the 5th morning, I will mark you with blood. Morning 6th of the fateful day. The first is gone, but I don't see the second. Covered with sweat and whimpering with horror, Sergei huddled under the kitchen table, clutching with stiffened fingers at the cross. The grave lullaby was interrupted by the click of the lock on the front door. Someone had entered the apartment without difficulty and fumbled in the hallway. In the gap between the floor and the long oilcloth tablecloth appeared someone's feet in old woman's stockings. Going around the table, the owner of the rare tights threw the kettle on the stove and struck a match. Sergei cautiously got on all fours and looked out from under the tablecloth. There was no doubt. Antonina Pavlovna in person came at dawn to drink tea, assuming that the tenant is now dozens of kilometers away from the rented apartment. Sighing heavily, the landlady came out of the kitchen and stopped in front of the locked room, rattling a bunch of keys. At last, her arthritic fingers managed the heavy lock and the door swung open. Along the walls were boxes of rags, a shrunken closet, and other junk. In the middle of the room, as if nothing had happened, sat a girl of about 14 with huge bruises under her eyes and greasy black hair in tangles. A long white shirt stained with dried blood hid everything else, carelessly rolling a tiny baby skull across the floor. The girl smiled predatorily at her visitor. Well, what took you so long? I might be in trouble. You have to get him over with quickly. Yeah, he's so funny. Scared, Mommy. I want to play with him some more, replied the creature already familiar to Sergei's voice. How many can you do, Marina? How many can you do? Hysterically whispered. The mistress prayerfully folded her palms in front of daughter. To death, Mommy. To death. Or I'll make it much worse. You know I can, Mommy, shrieked the creepy girl. Or come to me yourself, and you won't have to bring anyone else to me. What do you say, Mommy? Sergei saw a bold chalk line on the floor between the girl and her mother. It was clear that for no reason in the world, the old woman would not go beyond that line. Rolling out from under the table, Sergei jumped to his feet and with a powerful blow pushed the landlady into the creepy room. Had time to see the thin, pale hands stretched out to meet her, the slam of the door, the click of the lock, and an inhuman long scream mixed with joyous laughter ringing in the dawn silence. The kettle on the stove was already gurgling and blowing steam from its narrow spout. Let it go. It remained to open 3 more burners and close the window. Sergei did not care what would happen to the inhabitants of the house in a few hours.